It was the May of 2022. The pandemic had just started wrapping up, summer was here, and I was ready. I had my whole break carefully crafted with my friends. We were going to go to the beach, to the mall, to the movies. It was going to be epic. Or so I thought. But before I knew it, I was boarding a plane destined for Bangalore, India, where I would be spending the next 2 full months of my precious summer. Now, prior to this, my only recollection of India was when I had gone 4 years ago, and it was filled with unpleasant memories of heat, humidity, pollution, and lots of sickness. Needless to say, I felt like I had barely survived those 2 weeks that break and had no idea how I would last 2 full months. So we went to India, and the first week passed. The second week rolled around, the third week came, and I began to grow restless. While I liked talking to my cousins, I hadn't grown up around them, and it felt like I was talking to strangers sometimes. While I loved talking to my grandparents, there was a communication barrier as I couldn't translate everything through our native language. Then the end of the first month came, and I began to grow desperate. I was so ready to leave, to go back home, where I could speak in English, where the food was okay, and where there wasn't so much pollution. But then, halfway through the first week of the second month, something clicked. I realized that whether I liked it or not, I would be spending the next full month there, so I decided I was going to make the best of it. I started talking to those around me. I learned everything about my relatives, how my grandparents grew up, how my parents grew up. I started going on small trips, touring the towns, the cities, learning about the culture, talking to the locals, and my favorite part, eating all the amazing food. And then as the end of the second month came around, I was astonished at the fact that I was actually kind of dreading that plane ride home. The moment I had been waiting for had finally arrived, and I almost wished that it hadn't. Now, that summer, I learned so much about my history, my culture, and my heritage. Growing up in America, I'd always idolized people like Anne Hathaway, Amelia Earhart, or Julia Child. But after those 2 months, that list changed to include people like Sai Pallavi, Indira Gandhi, and of course, Priyanka Chopra. So the question is, what did I learn in that one crucial month that completely altered my perspective on my own culture? Hi, my name is Krishia Sahali, and I'm an ABCD in the Bay Area. Now, for those of you who don't know, ABCD stands for American Born Confused Desi. Not to continue the vocabulary lesson, but Desi refers to people of South Asian descent, and it comes from the Hindi word desh, meaning homeland. So ABCD is a term which Indian culture has coined for second-generation immigrants, or people whose parents grew up in India, immigrated to America, and raised their children here. Now, I've come to notice something that many ABCDs have in common, and I've coined it the neither here nor there symptoms. It's what happens when I travel to India and people tell me that I speak Kannada with a strong American accent, or that when they saw me walking down the streets, they would think I was local, but the minute I opened my mouth to speak, they would know I didn't belong. And yet, when I traveled back home to America, people would ask me why my lunches smelled so strongly, or what that weird dot on my forehead was that I wore to school every day. Regardless, this left me feeling neither here nor there, like I was not fully a part of either country, either culture, or either home. Now, I grew up in Seattle, Washington, where I grew to watch many familiar American television shows and movies. Here, I saw multiple women and girls on screens who looked nothing like me, talked nothing like me, didn't practice the same traditions, or even eat the same foods as me. And this led me to have a really biased perspective that made me question why I didn't fit the mold. Growing up, I always felt like my classmates had things like PB&J lunches, while I was stuck with idli and sambar. Now, while I've come to love and appreciate my mother's cooking, as a young child among predominantly white peers, these small instances grew up to me feeling estranged, like there was something I was doing different or something I was doing wrong. So I began to search in the media for people that represented me. And the first character I came across was Baljeet from Phineas and Ferb. You know, the tall, skinny Indian nerd who gets bullied throughout the entire TV series. And he's not the only one. Whether it's Raj from Big Bang Theory, Apu from The Simpsons, or even Ravi from Jessie, all of these Indian characters have a couple of things in common. So let me introduce you to our modern media's way of creating these stereotypical Indian characters. Number one, they must have a very strong and obviously fake Indian accent. You know what I'm talking about. Number two, they must be tall, skinny, shy, and very, very awkward. And number three, their only personality trait can be being academically intelligent and entirely socially undesirable. And while this may seem humorous, the truth is hundreds of thousands of ABCDs like me grew up watching these characters on our TV screens, feeling like we have to conform to this stereotype or act and behave a certain way simply because we're Indian. And this doesn't only apply to Indians. Whether it's Lane Kim, the character from Gilmore Girls with the extremely strict, religious, and overbearing protective Korean mom, or even a stereotypical dumb blonde Barbie that we see in Hollywood movies. Thousands of people that consume these media have these stereotypes in their minds, which can portray in their everyday lives. Because while it may seem like it's just a movie or just a television show, the truth is people grow up watching this media from a young age to adulthood. These stereotypes are permanently ingrained in our minds, and it can lead to everyday instances from bullying on the schoolyard to even racial hate crimes. Because we as a society have come more and more to surround ourselves with people who are similar to us, people with similar backgrounds, similar experiences, and similar ideas. But this means more and more we continue to distance ourselves from those who are different. We refuse to listen and talk with people who come from different backgrounds, who have different experiences and therefore different perspectives. And this needs to change. Because as someone who's seen two sides of the same coin, from a more liberal culture to a more conservative one, from a more modern culture to a relatively older one, I've seen how these differences can drive people apart, when really it should be bringing us together. Now, every Saturday, I volunteer at a language school where I teach future generations of ABCDs what it means to learn our language and the culture associated with it. Now, as a young child, I would be forced to go to these lessons every week, and I despised about every minute of it. But after that 1 month in India, I decided that I was going to come back and teach future generations of ABCDs how they can incorporate our language and our culture in their everyday lives in America. So when I began to go and teach at these classes, I conducted a small poll. Every class, I would ask 3 students, are you here because your parents want you to be, or because you genuinely want to learn the language? And unsurprisingly, 95% of students said it was just because their parents asked them to be there. But what surprised me was that in response, I had a lot of students who asked me, why did you come back? You've already graduated, so why are you still here volunteering and helping teach? And this was when I began explaining to the small 4th or 5th graders my yin-yang model. Let's take the white part of the yin-yang with a small black circle inside. This represents me when I go to India. The small black circle represents the part of American culture and tradition that I carry with me and then share with my relatives in India. Then the black part of the yin-yang with the small white circle inside represents me when I'm in America. The small white circle is my part of Indian culture and heritage that I try to share with those around me. Now together, this white and black part come and fit perfectly to create my identity as a second-generation immigrant. So as I've come to this transition from confusion to clarity, I've come to realize that it's not about picking one side or the other, one country or the other, or one culture or the other, but rather finding a way that we can be both. It's being able to fight for better representation of Indians in media so that future generations of ABCDs don't have to grow up seeing only Raj or Baljeet on their TV screens. Being an ABCD has taught me that I'm not required to fit any stereotype, to fall in with any mold. And I hope that future generations of ABCDs don't have to be confused, because they don't have to grow up in a world where they have to pick between being one or the other, but rather an open, accepting world where we are willing to listen to people who are different to us. Because as Oprah Winfrey said, In the end, it's not about fitting into what someone else's identity for you is. It's about finding your own identity and embracing your light as proudly as you can. Thank you.